Sham Claffer online. If you consider yourself in any way a theater buff, and if you would extend your theater buffery, if there's such a word, to the state of Israel to find out what the state of the art of drama and theater is in Israel, then you'll be interested in joining me with our guest today, who is Dr. Shosana Weitz from Israel. She is director of a program at Tel Aviv University. She'll tell us more about it in one moment. Hi.
Hello.
Welcome to online. Tell us a little bit about what you do at Tel Aviv University.
Well, as everybody in Israel, I'm doing several things. So to start with, I'm running a program of educational theater, which is dealing with all you can do with theater in society, in schools, in community, in working with senior citizens, in working with mentally disturbed people, and mainly in education and in the school system.
When you talk about working with these different people, children, senior citizens, and mentally disabled people, are they involved in the program, or do you bring theater to them for them to watch?
We are bringing theater to them for them to watch, and we are working with them on creating performances and on using theater games as part of their curriculum for them to extend their abilities, to express themselves, to interact with one another through drama.
Does this become therapeutic? Is there any evidence that this is helpful to them?
Well, yes and no. I mean, we have the impression that it is therapeutic. I'm very careful with this work. It sounds too big to me. I have the feeling that we do bring some benefit to them, and just now we are developing a model of examining and getting more exact result about the benefit it does bring, but we know for sure that it brings joy and happiness and the feel of equality, because other people get that in Israel, so why not them?
Do you find when you're working with children or senior citizens and who generally are not sophisticated theater goers that you have a more natural reaction to what they see from these kind of people than a more sophisticated theater audience? In other words, they'll laugh louder, or they'll applaud at certain times, or they'll cry unabashedly. Do you find that with this kind of audience?
Well, Shom, to start with, most of the people in Israel are quite sophisticated theater goers. Israel has the world record in theater attendance. So for us, theater is part of the way of life. And yes, children, mostly children, are very responsive to the theater, and they act very lively, vividly. Now, when it comes to old people, part of them have never seen theater in their life because they came from countries that theater were not part of the tradition. And they have wonderful reactions. Some of them are amazed by the fact that they are on stage for the first time in their life. Some of them will control the stage and will not let you stop them because they are doing something very, and sometimes, last time I've seen a senior citizen's performance, there was somebody who was a great actor, that's what he said at least, in Bulgaria. Mm-hmm. And he is now about 82. And he was the star, dancing and singing and very happy.
So it's an outlet for him too.
Yes.
Which brings me to the major question that I wanted to start with, which is, what is the state of theater in Israel today? You just gave us a little hint by saying that this is the largest theater-going population. Tell us a little bit about...
Well, for a small country, Israel is very, theater in Israel is popular, succeeding, and quite good. Being a critic, I cannot say, of course, that it is good, but...
Well, we're not talking about a specific play right now, so...
Yeah, let's say it's quite good in terms of professionalism. I mean, we have good directors, good actors, and the Hebrew drama had been developed tremendously in the last 10 years. We have realistic playwrights. We have one very good and getting and gaining slowly but surely world fame, Hanoch Levin, who is on the border of absurd and realism, and he is writing about Jewish and life in general very good. And there is, there is a generation, a young generation of playwrights who are dealing with Jewish subject from a universal point of view and are succeeding not only in Israel. A Jewish play, The Soul of a Jew, was presented in the World
Let me interrupt you for a minute. When
Yes.
you say a Jewish play, what do you mean?
I mean a play which deals with a Jewish theme. For instance,
With a morality theme?
morality, historical, Judaism versus Zionism. For instance, The Soul of a Jew, which was written by Joshua Sobol and gained the first prize in Edinburgh last year, is dealing with the life and suicide of Otto Weininger, the beginning of the century, who was a Jew who converted and then tried to come back. And Otto Weininger, and the whole play is dealing with the question, is Zionism a new or natural way for Judaism, or is it contradictory?
It's an interesting question,
Yes.
theatrically, and also in Israel for this to be proposed,
Yes.
because obviously Israel
It
is
was
the
a very-
ultimate Zionism. In what language are most plays given? Is it all in Hebrew?
It is in Hebrew, but you can come to Tel Aviv and get a simultaneous translation during the show. And I must say that when they went to Edinburgh, and they are now going, this year they are going to Berlin, to the Berlin Festival, they are presenting in Hebrew, and they are succeeding in Hebrew because, I mean, when a show is good, you can enjoy the visual side, you can have the synopsis. And when I'm going to Paris, and I don't understand even one word of French, I can still enjoy theater. And there is, of course, modern theater, which is not as verbal, so you can enjoy the production.
Theater, in terms of original theater in Israel, I assume is a fairly new thing because the country is still a young country and the arts are developing. So when the rest of the world theatrically went through the theater of the absurd and theater of cruelty and the whole new wave, where was Israel? Is it doing it now? Is it going through that now, the young playwrights or the new playwrights in Israel? Where does Israel stand?
It's an interesting question. I'm dealing with this topic in my classroom because, you see, in the 60s, it was an immediate transfer from New York avant-garde to Tel Aviv avant-garde. You could see Israel Horovitz, for instance, The Line, in the beginning of the year in New York and in the end of the year in Tel Aviv. Waiting for Godot was presented in Israel 2 years after it was presented, after its world premiere. Nowadays, it's a bit slower. And we are now into the phase of non-verbal theater, not exactly theater of cruelty, but we are into performance in the terms of multimedia and mixing various kinds of art, but we are also going back to realism, as well as the German theater do and the English theater do. So we do keep with the Western drama, mainly probably because we don't have theatrical tradition.
In Israel, is there a national theater? Is there a state-supported theater? Is it individual schools that produce the greater amount of actors and playwrights? Where does it come from? Who's generating it?
Well, to start with, we have the National Theater Habima, which was founded in Russia, and they worked with Stanislavski in their beginning, and they came to Israel. And they have toured, by the way, in the United States for at least 10 times. And most theaters are subsidized by the state. It is considered to be one of the citizen privilege to enjoy theater, especially out of the big cities, which means that it's a part of the country contribution to the development settlements is a program of distributing the arts. There is a state agency, Omanut La'am, Art for the People, which brings theater, concerts, museum all over the country. So you can live in the very far north and have the same theater you have in Tel Aviv, and I would dare say even in such a good and developed place as Chicago.
If it is state-supported, Habima or whatever, endowed by the state, does the state control the artistic direction of theater in Israel? Can
No.
you comment on that?
Of course I can. No, they don't. They try from time to time. I mean, there is a constant argument about the question if the government has to pay for somebody to attack her values. And the last time the new Prime Minister, Shimon Peres, gave a declaration, it was the 14th anniversary of the Camera Theater of Tel Aviv, and it was a big celebration. He was in his first month of being Prime Minister, and he gave a very nice statement saying that he believed that the country should pay for the theater to criticize the country, and I believe so too.
Well,
very
so if it's a
strongly.
question of Zionism, or if it's a delicate question of Arab-Jewish or Arab-Israeli relationships, do you have to tread carefully?
Well,
If some playwright wrote a play that was overtly sympathetic to Arabs of a little village, say, would that play have trouble being produced?
Let me tell you something. There is a beginning of Arabic theater in Israel, which is a part of the Israeli theater system. The Haifa theater Haifa is a mixed city of Jews and Arabs, and there are two very good successful Arabic actors which were part of the Jewish stage, and they started this year to work in Arabic. And there is now an ongoing production of Waiting for Godot, which is done in Hebrew and Arabic. So the two main characters are speaking Arabic. Pozor, when he comes to stage playing the landlord, he's speaking Hebrew. So you can realize that it
from the
is
Arab point of view, yes, speaking that language.
So of course there were protests in the parliament, and many people asked why should we present their point of view, but that's democracy. I mean, people are protesting, but the theater is going on.
Which brings me to another aspect. Basically, theater going, I would assume, is done by the European, the Ashkenazi, who come from theatrical and cultured backgrounds. What about the new immigrants, the Asians, the Orientals, and the Arabs? Do they take part in any great number on what's going on in theater in Israel?
Well, theater in Israel is so popular mainly because it was brought to the newcomers from the eastern countries when they just arrived to Israel as part of what the state had given them. The state agency I mentioned, Omanut La'am, started to work in 48 and in the beginning of the 50s, bringing theater as part of Hebrew teaching, as part of education. So there are as many Eastern Jews going to the theater as European. And in fact, whereas in the big cities, people are more blasé, and they say, well, I won't go to the theater. I know it's important, but I'll stay home and watch television instead.
I think it's true of almost any culture. You become somewhat immune to everything wonderful that's going around you, and it's the new immigrants who get all excited and want to partake of cultural activities.
So now we have the figures that in the development settlement, they are seeing as much theater per human being as in Tel Aviv, and Eastern Jews are doing it nearly as much as the Europeans, especially the second generation. We are very proud of it.
Which brings me to another question about what the new immigrants would absorb in terms of, you're doing a sophisticated play, like Waiting for Godot. In order to even understand Waiting for Godot, there has to be some sophistication to begin with. How does somebody absorb this kind of play when it's not from their culture? And as a matter of fact, it might be strange within the culture from which it comes. How do they appreciate that or get an appreciation for that?
Well, to start with, we have a very elaborated program of theater education going into the high schools, the elementary school, and into the community before bringing a show like Waiting for Godot to a settlement which doesn't get theater that often. The actors will come, talk to the people, explain or do something to introduce the play. And by doing that for 10 or 15 years already, you have all around the country sophisticated audiences. The image of somebody who is coming to the theater, knowing nothing about the theater, is not natural to Israel anymore. In Israel, the audiences are more sophisticated than in many other Western countries.
So then you're saying that sophistication actually transcends the lines, and that by and large, since it's a theater-going audience anyhow, even newcomers are quickly adapted and adaptable to this kind of thing. What is the image of actors and actresses? Is it like in America where they're venerated and money is heaped upon them and they have all the material things? What is the place of an actor in Israel?
Well, not that good. I mean, it's not the old Jewish image of an actor being, second-degree citizen, but they don't earn that much, mainly because the television is national and it's paying very little. The theater are subsidized by the state and they are paying averagely, not more, and the movies is just beginning. So they are not paid very good, but they are successful socially, they are well accepted and famous, especially on television.
Is it like America where autograph hounds run after them and they have to wear dark glasses as they go down the street?
Not that much, mainly by the children, of course, but not that much.
So there's not that kind of hero worship where you put them way up high. Everybody is somewhat equal in Israel.
Yeah, no, there is not. I mean, the children will run after them and my kids will ask me to get an autograph for them, but not as here, I believe, not.
Has American drama or American musicals, or Broadway, let me put it under the title of Broadway, has Broadway had any impact on Israeli theater?
Yes and no. I mean, I sound like a politician saying yes and no. I'll start with the musical comedies are too expensive to produce. And I don't think, in the 70s, there was one theater producing musicals, but they stopped because of the money problem. So we don't have that big Broadway shows, but the non-musical are constantly transferring to Israel, and we are presenting good, famous American contemporary playwright. Like, there are two productions of David Mamet's play going now. One in the
Chicagoland, by the way.
I know. The Glennery Glen Ross was just closed in Habima, and the American Buffalo is still going in a small theater. Sam Shepard.
Glen Ross, is that in Hebrew?
No, that's in English.
You do that in English. I was saying
no, that was done in Hebrew.
It was done in Hebrew. That had such a lyrical quality about the wording. I didn't think it could even be translated. And of course, there are a lot of obscene language in it. I don't know if obscenities is part of the Israeli, mentality as it is in this country. How does that work out when you are translating something so particular to a particular country in a way of life?
Well, it didn't work that good, unfortunately, and probably because the obscenity, which is very natural for an American to wear a three-piece suit and still use obscenities, it is not that natural in Israel and in Hebrew. And that creates
some of that.
Yes, it lost. It was better with the American Buffalo. I didn't see. I have seen that in London, doing by the National Theatre. I haven't seen it done here, and I had the feeling that the Hebrew production lost some of the lyrical quality, but still it was quite reasonable production. Shepard was done in Israel, not as much as I would love to because I adore his work, but the Far West. True West, excuse me. True West was done and was quite successful. And many others, I'm not speaking, of course, of Arthur Miller or Neil Simon, the Brighton Beach is now produced in Habima. And as I've told you, in the 60s, much of the avant-garde was done in Israel. Horowitz, Claude Van Italy, and many others. De La Mama was constantly visiting.
Of course, Israelis get around, they travel, they go to London, they go to America. I think certainly there is some knowledge of what's going on in the other countries in terms of the arts. What about the classics, Greek, Shakespeare?
Well, there is a constant attempt to present the Greeks and the classics and Shakespeare and of course Racine, and it is quite successful. I mean, we don't have the same wonderful English elocution which is needed to do Shakespeare, but modern versions are done and quite successful. Last year, a very daring Hamlet was presented, directed by a Romanian director, which made a very blunt political Hamlet and changed the plot and changed the environment, and it was quite successful.
In what way?
Well, Hamlet was a play about, according to this guy, Cernesco, the Romanian, Hamlet was a political conspiracy to start with, where everybody was at the back of the others, and all of them were controlled by the big brother, Fortinbras, which probably in Romania was hinting to the big brother
Right, so
in Russia.
it was familiar.
Yes, it was familiar.
Translated
it was very,
into
yes, it was
realistic
very interesting.
terms.
Yes.
Is there a section, I try to picture things, and I think of Broadway with neon lights flashing. Is there a section, either Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, that's a theater section? Are things done in small little theaters, campus-type places? Give me some visual image of what the theater is about.
Well, there is no area that you will say this is a 42nd Street or this is Broadway. There is not. There is a Dizengoff Street, which is a central Tel Aviv street and very lively, and the Camry Theater is seated there. Come to think about it, the Habima is part of a complex. There is the Habima and the Man auditoriums and art galleries around. It's very nice to go and walk down the street, and most of the time the weather is very nice, so you will walk from Habima to the galleries around. The small theaters are located in various parts of the town, and just 2 years ago, a rundown neighborhood started a theater. The theater is not very successful, but the neighborhood is not run down anymore because cafes moved in, and you will go out there, you know, just to walk and to go into a restaurant. Tel Aviv is a very nice place to walk in through the night, and there is very much going on.
What about Yiddish theater? Does that flourish at all in Israel? Doesn't.
No.
Would you have an audience for it?
I guess that we will have small, old audiences. The Yiddish as a language is now taught in some high schools because young kids are now getting interested in Yiddish.
That's happening here too.
Yes, I heard, and probably it's the same movement of going back to your roots.
To your roots, right.
But it's not a living language anymore, not on stage. I've seen that there is a Yiddish theater coming to Chicago.
It's here. It's here
yes,
now.
Yes,
it's out of New York. It's not produced here. It's produced in New York, I believe, and brought here. But there are a lot of people excited about it, and well, I love the idea too. Well, I remember Yiddish theater here in Chicago as a child, going with my grandmother. Yes. And there was two places. There was the Jewish Community House on the Old West Side, and then there was an actual Jewish theater.
Let me tell you, I'm coming from New York, and 10 days ago, I went to a memorial service for Yosef Bulov, which took place in New York. And it was fascinating. It was the Harold Klerman Theater, and they had old Jewish actors of the Yiddish stage and his wife, and people from, you know, old actors, but also new actors who come to pay respect, and it was fascinating. Yes, it was very nice.
Yeah. Where, if there's a talented, aspiring actor, where can they go? Is there a drama school, a serious drama school in Israel, and it feels that they can accomplish something by going to that school, or would they go somewhere in Europe or America?
Well, they will start probably in Israel because there is a very good acting school, 3 years acting school, and there are 3 other studios that you can study, private studios, and of course there is the University of Tel Aviv, my department, that you can study. And because theater is so popular in Israel, there is no unemployment for actors in Israel. So if you can
a lot of American actors hear this, they're going to come running.
I know that, well, don't run, because the accent, American accent, is still a problem on the Jewish state in Israel. It's funny, you know, that the beginning of the Israeli theater, as I told you, it began in Russia, in Moscow, where Habima started. And for many years, Hebrew spoken in heavy Russian accent was the legitimate language for the stage.
That's
for
interesting.
The stage, yes.
So if they modernized it, it sounded weird and you didn't want to hear it. You wanted the Russian.
Yes, and the American had difficulties going on stage because of the American accent.
Does Israel have anything to export to us now? Do you have something for us? Is Israeli theater ready to give something to America?
Well, I think that we have at least 2 playwrights that should be produced in America. They are presented in London nearly every year in English. They came to, they spent some time as the guest of De La Mama.
Oh, sure.
But a Hanoch Levin plays should be presented in the United States, and they are probably as good as most of the plays done in the last decade, and I'm sure that he will break the language border and become famous here too.
I will be looking forward to that, and I would certainly be looking forward to becoming familiar with Israeli theater and Habima. Has Habima come to this country?
Not this year, but they come.
They
from
have
time
been
to,
here.
Yes.
I'm Sham Klaffer online. Thank you so much, Shosana Weitz, for being with us, enlightening us on Israel theater, and thank you so much for watching.